Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. This is part two of the brutal homicide double murder of Honey and Barry Sherman. Honey was age 70. Barry was 75 years old. On Wednesday, December 13th, 2017, these two were killed in their 12,000 square foot, three-level modern mansion in North York, north of the Port Authority and the Obelisk in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Barry was the founder and chairman of the board of Apotex. The legal name is Apotex Pharmaceutical Holdings Incorporated. And these two had four children. They had three daughters and one son, Jonathan. And their fifth child was Apotex Pharmaceutical Holdings, Inc., known as a generic producer of drugs, what they call affordable medication. All right. These two were murdered before the COVID rollout, the COVID hoax. You can be damn sure that Apotex would have participated in the COVID hoax, just like all the judges and all the barristers who appeared at all the hearings regarding the trustees and the battle over the estate. The Sherman family estate is the subject of multiple, I'd like to say, multiple lawsuits, both inside and outside the immediate family. And the trust is very, very clear. It divides the Sherman estate equally amongst the four children, which is Lauren and is Jonathan, and then Alexandra and Kaylin. Those three. That's the chronological order, birth order. They all get equal 25% shares. Now, having said that, you do know that some of the children do drink off of the company, trough, so to speak. They do drink along the trough. There are a number of charitable foundations. There are a number of real estate holdings which have property management duties and jobs. They Apotex still employs 8,000 people today. It is no longer owned in any kind of a meaningful way by the Sherman Trust, which is represented by what is called the SureFam Holding Company, which is an incorporated company of Ontario, incorporated as the SureFam Incorporated. And its primary asset was Apotex. Now, this is another mystery of the case. The reason that I'm presenting over Chief Inspector Reginald Smythe is because I'm a chartered accountant, and so I'm licensed to handle figures, so to speak, with my hand. I can handle the figures. So I'm handling this as a financial analysis segment, part two, for the double murder homicides of Honey and Barry Sherman. All right, so you should know that on April 3rd, 2023, okay, so that's 5.5 years out from the murders, the company was sold to a private equity firm in Manhattan, New York. It's called SK Capital Partners. SK, don't know what that stands for. I'll give you a link to their home page. Their corporate address is 430 Park Avenue. They're located on the 18th floor. That's a 666 mark of the beast. SK Capital, little is known about them. You know they have banking relationships. And I'm going to say, since they're right down the street from Blackstone and Stephen Schwartzman are at 345 Park Avenue, they're owned and controlled by Swiss Bank Authority, expressed as Swiss Credit Suisse, UBS, Union Bank of Switzerland, and the International Settlements for Global Governance, which is in Basel, Switzerland. So because SK Capital Partners is just a couple blocks away from Blackstone, I'm going to say that they're also controlled by Switzerland. Now, they won't tell you who their investors are. They'll give you the name of Dr. Barry Siegat. Siegat, he's Indian. And Jamshid Keen Jad, he's Indian. They're the so-called straw founders. And then they have managing partners, Jack Norris and Aaron Davenport, who are the straw men who will do the phony fake interviews. But you do know that SK Capital Partners is a private company. There is no stockholder notification. There's no K1 filings. There's no notifications whatsoever. It's a black box. And if they make money or lose money, it's none of your business. None of your business. And they own Apotox Pharmaceutical Holdings, Inc. Barry Sherman's baby, his fifth child, which employs 8,000 employees and operates in 45 countries and exports generic drugs into 100 nations. And as you know on my channel, if you're a paid member, there's no such thing as a nation. So let's say that they sell drugs in 100 Hunger Games, 100 Hunger Games worldwide. All right. And to this day, Apotex Pharmaceuticals is the largest generic producer of drugs in Canada. Oh, Canada. So you should know that Apotex is still a big deal. When Barry Sherman was murdered, their annual sales were $1.6 billion per year when Barry died. Now, none of his 4 children have ever been involved in the management of Apotex in any meaningful way. I mean, Jonathan, his son, who's his second eldest, Jonathan did fire his 40-year confidant, Jack, trying to remember his last name. There was a person who took over the management, the executive management of Apotex upon the surprising murder of Barry Sherman. And it was his longtime trusted friend who did that, who he confided in. And I have his name. His name is Jack K. All right. And he was unceremoniously terminated by Jonathan Sherman 1 year to the day of the discovery of their bodies, which was on December 15th, 2017. 1 year later, in December 2018, Jack K was fired. He was sacked. There was no, gold watch or retirement ceremony. He was walked to the door. They had security guards videoing the exit so that they took his building pass from him, and he was kicked to the curb, literally. All right. Very suspicious that Jonathan would do that. Doesn't change anything, though. It doesn't change anything. Jonathan was already angry at the 2 other trustees of the Sherman Family Trust, which, of course, was expressed in the form of his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law is married to Alexandra, and his name is Brad Krawcheck, essentially. Brad Krawcheck, who is a co-trustee with Jonathan Sherman on the Sherman Family Trust. And the adult supervision is expressed in the form of Alex Glassenberg, who is the president of the SureFam Holding Company, Incorporated. Alex Glassenberg was petitioned to be thrown off the board at the time of Barry Sherman's murder, which would be in 2017. Jonathan had petitioned to rid him because of violating his fiduciary duties and showing lack of competency. He wanted Alex Glassenberg removed from the board at the time that Barry and Honey were killed. He also wanted his brother-in-law removed from the board for the same reasons. Breach of fiduciary duty. Wanted to get rid of Brad Krawcheck and Alex Glassenberg. Now, fast forward to today, it's 9 years later, we're in 2026, right? He still has a petition to remove those 2 trustees from the Sherman Family Trust, which he refiled again in 2025. So 9 years later, the only thing that's really changed is the golden goose, which is called Apotex Pharmaceutical Holdings Inc., has been transferred to SK Capital Partners. Now, the rumor is that the company was sold for approximately $3 billion, which would be 2 times revenue. Seems a little bit on the low side, in my opinion. However, we were in the height of COVID. We were coming out of COVID in 2022, 2023 was when these negotiations were happening. So you can lowball pretty much anything out there in the economy because of everybody's on the ropes because of the COVID hoax, right? The COVID hoax where everybody masked up and social distance, 6 feet, 33. Obedience, the highest level of obedience is 6 feet of social distancing. Wearing a face diaper does show your obedience to the cult, to the obedience of Swiss bank authority. Pledging your allegiance to a 13-stripe flag, that is a form of enslavement, techno-enslavement, and mental derangement. You know, anyone who celebrates the 4th of July and blows up firecrackers and drinks beer and barbecues is mentally ill, okay? Pretty much. You don't get it, do you? You just don't get it. All right, so the bottom line is there is no Securities and Exchange Commission filing between the New York hedge fund, SK Capital Partners. There's no filings that they made to buy a Canadian generic pharmacy. And there's no filings in Canada to disclose the price of those stock shares to gain control of Apotex. So we really do not know what it was sold for. It could have been sold for peanuts, right? I mean, maybe it was sold for next to nothing. Now, the rumor is that that it was valued in 2022 at $3 billion, but it was sold on April 3rd, 2023, the next year, for an unknown amount. So I don't know, and Jonathan Sherman isn't saying, and neither is Alexandra, and those are the only 2 Sherman children who actually speak to the public. All right, so your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea what the value was, which would, of course, determine how much money each of the 4 children have. You should know there's other lawsuits involving the Winter family, which are cousins of the Sherman kids, because it was Lewis Winter who founded Empire Pharmaceuticals. It was called Empire Laboratories. And he died, and Barry Sherman did purchase a controlling interest in the company, but for a special price, contingent upon him employing all the children of Lewis Winter, which he basically repudiated because he arranged a stock swap with one of the Empire Labs customers, and then don't know who, you know, it's espionage, it's conspiracy. You don't really know, it's secret meeting, conspiracy. So the customer then sold off Empire Laboratories to another third party, which gave rise to Barry starting his own company, Apotex Pharmacy Holdings, where he does everything exactly the same to a T that Empire was doing. Plus he poached their top employees and lab workers, which would include Jack Kay, who came with him to Apotex and who took over Apotex upon his murder, and who was then fired by his son, his only son, Jonathan Sherman. Okay, I hope you're following me. I believe that Swiss Bank Authority expressed through this straw men, these Indian Dr. Barry, Sayadat, and Jamshin Kayajad, that they are basically clones and puppets, and that Swiss Bank Control gained access to the generic producer in Canada, the #1 company, for an undisclosed amount of money. Now, Switzerland can pay infinity amounts of money because they print it up themselves, but they probably got the family business. They probably got Barry Sherman's business at a sharp discount. Probably, but I can't prove it. No one can. It's a top secret thing, right? So what you should know is that we have a situation here where all pharmaceutical companies have been conscripted into participating in tethering human beings to the cloud. So they're putting the nano into everything, whether it's the flu shot, the annual flu shot, or whether it's monkeypox, bird flu, Omicron variant. And we never really officially got a all clear sign on COVID. So COVID continues to linger. If you follow my channel, you know there's no such thing as COVID. COVID is a made up psychological hoax. What is real is radiation poisoning, Havana syndrome. That's true and real. There's no reimbursement code for it. There's no drug you can take for it. All you can do is unplug all the smart meters, all the LED lights. All you can do is get rid of all the red paint on the corners and the crosswalks that are loaded up with the nanobots, which you call MIMS, micro electronic mechanical sensors, and getting the airplane traffic out of your sky, getting the KC-10 extenders out of your sky, getting all the smart dust out of your sky, getting all the nano out of our life, getting your wireless router out of your home, getting your mobile phone ditched, and staying the hell away from vaccinated people, because vaccinated people are like 5G towers. They're walking around walking antennas. A boosted human being is as toxic as standing next to a cell phone. Are you following me? I mean, I can't apologize for telling it how it is. The injectable products are bio cyber interfaces to tether people to the cloud. And if you chummy up to them, you're tethered to the cloud too. It's a diabolical capital crime. It's a diabolical capital crime. It's really just amazing that they got away with it. All right. Now, it turns out that Barry and Honey were strung up, like junkyard sculptures. Do you know these two junkyard sculptures were in the Rumpus Room entertainment area? If I could get myself out of the photograph, I could show you. This is basically the downstairs entertainment area on the third level in the basement. This is on the exact same level of the swimming pool, indoor pool, where Barry and Honey were strung up in this exact pose, with Barry's ankles crossed, like this gentleman, his ankles are crossed. This is junkyard art. And the killers didn't have to use their imagination. All they had to do is go in this room, which is only 100 feet away from where the bodies were dumped, and just all you got to do is just copycat that. String them up with a $9 belt. Barry was wearing a $9 belt that Honey had purchased for him at a flea market. She bought 2 leather belts. The second leather belt had to be in the master closet in the master bedroom up on the 3rd floor, or the 2nd floor of the ground level. And you should know that the killers knew where to get the second belt. They took the first belt off of Barry, who I believe they surprised when he drove his 1999 Mustang into the garage, which, by the way, is on the same level as the swimming pool. And then they, after having garroted him and killing him, and after having garroted and killing Honey, they then carried the bodies over to the pool. I believe they were both killed on that level. It's possible Honey was killed on the ground level floor. Her cell phone was found in the half bathroom off the foyer, meaning that maybe she was trying to hide in the bathroom there, trying to escape her intruders. Is an intruder alert problem? Don't know, but it is unusual that her cell phone was in the upstairs half bathroom. It is also a clue that on the hallway off the garage, that Barry's driving leather gloves were found on the floor, along with the real estate inspection report, which the realtor had asked him to review and bring home that night. There was to be an open house on Friday, on the 15th. They were going to have an open house to show all the realtors in the community this 12,000 foot house. You do know they were building a 16,000 square foot home in Forest Hill area, which is maybe 5 miles away from this area, is in York, New York area of Toronto. So what you should know is that the killers would have staged them using the $9 belts after having killed them in poses that are identical to this junkyard sculptures that are sitting there on the stereo speakers in the entertainment room near the pool and near the garage. This is also near where Barry parks his Mustang. So how's them apples, right? So I just want you to know that financially, we do not have an absolutely provable price for the purchase of Apotex. We can only speculate that perhaps it was near $1 billion. You do know that the Shermans have many other assets too. They own real estate assets, and they have loans outstanding. Barry he lent $60 million to Jonathan to buy real estate and equipment to do self-storage, which Jonathan calls green storage, green because he likes to be politically correct. And so that's another asset of the Sherman family, is to get repaid by Jonathan for the storage, or else sell it and get what you can. They also own a marina. I believe that's collateralized also. Jonathan bought a marina. It was financed by a loan from Barry. So that's another accounts receivable, is the unpaid loan balance on the marina. They own 100 acres of pristine land in North Ontario. I believe it's called Peterborough. It's the North Peterborough area. They have a family compound with improvements on it, but it's 100 acres of land, mostly forested, on the lake. And that's very valuable. And then they have money in the Bahamas, which perhaps is not included in the Sherman Family Trust. It's included in an offshore trust for the benefit of the children, 4 of them. I have no idea how much money is offshore. I heard a rumor is $1 billion. That would mean they'd each have $250 million. Each child, Jonathan and Lauren and Alexandra and Kaylin, would each be worth at least $250 million based upon the Bahamas account, if the rumor is true. I don't know how much that 100 acres of land is in Ontario, but it's got to be worth quite a bit. Each of the children has a private cottage on that property, so they always have a free house to go to, and maintenance and security, it's all taken care of. It's turnkey. All they have to do is go there. They're all on monthly allowances. None of the children speak with each other. They've had a falling out. Nobody knows who killed their parents. People are pointing fingers. Everything turned out more or less the same as if the Shermans hadn't have been killed. This would have been the same situation as they were killed. The only difference is you can't go to Barry directly. You can't go to the Bank of Barry, and you can't go to the Bank of Honey to ask for some extra money. But most of the kids are drawing salaries from the charitable foundations that Honey established, or they're getting money from the real estate property managers of their holdings, or they're getting trustee fees for sitting on the different board of directors. One, of course, is the 3 men, Alex Glassenberg and Jonathan Sherman and Brad Krachek. They're all drawing monthly payments for sitting as trustees for the Sherman Family Trust. And in addition to that, Alex Glassenberg is drawing a second salary as president of the SureFam Holdings Incorporated, Incorporation of Ontario. So these people are all getting multiple paychecks, even if they don't work. I mean, Alexandra is a registered nurse. However, she's also on 2 different endowment fund boards. So she really doesn't need to look after the indigent people of Ontario, because she's already drawing multiple paychecks. And she also gets a monthly distribution from the net profit of the Sherman Family Trust Holdings. So wanted to make sure, I know this isn't terribly exciting in terms of Murder Most Foul, but it does talk about when the dust settles, who benefited. And in this case, I'm here to tell you, the only people really benefited from this was Wall Street private equity, because they got a generic company in Canada on the cheap because the children aren't interested in the company, and it's the #1 generic producer in Canada, and they got rid of Barry Sherman, who undoubtedly be a hard nut to crack. In other words, he wouldn't want to participate in the COVID hoax, maybe. Or if he did, you'd have to pay him a lot of extra money to bribe him. So why not just do away with him and cast suspicion in every direction, from Jonathan to Frank D'Angelo to the space aliens did it, to Charlie Manson did it, right? Why not? And that's what they've done. Nobody knows who killed Barry and Honey Sherman, but meanwhile, you have the Wall Street Swiss bank swooping in, and picking up the generic pharmacy business on the cheap, which they can use to install nano to get as many people on social medicine tethered to the cloud. I think they've already succeeded in getting most people tethered to the cloud. Anyway, let me see if there's any other photographs of note for you today. I'm not sure. Let's see. This is the man of the hour. This is Barry Sherman. He's the one that created the whole thing in the first place by borrowing the business from his uncle, who passed away, and then marrying Honey in 1971 when they hatched the Apotex company. Was approximately the time that they got married. And then they got this artwork, which I should talk a little bit about this artwork. This was given to them as a gift from one of their friends who was in Toronto but moved to the United States. And the Shermans asked if they would give this to them for their home, and they were happy to agree to do that. And what you should know is that this arrangement in this room did puzzle the police and Brian Greenspan, who is the brother of Edward Greenspan, which is what led me to this case. I was working with Rose on the cul-de-sac, Dandos Crescent cul-de-sac in North Ontario, near the University of Toronto, Mississauga. And the lawyer who represented Peter Demeter was Edward Greenspan, who got him convicted. And I believe that was his job, to conceal the true killers and to use Peter Demeter as the scapegoat for the killing of Christina Ferrari. Well, he died in 2014, but he has a younger brother, 3 years younger than him, whose name is Brian Greenspan. And Brian Greenspan was hired by the Sherman children and Alex Glassenberg to represent the family, since the Toronto police did not want to investigate the murder of the parents. The Toronto Police Department clinged on to a murder-suicide theory for 6 weeks. So what the Shermans did is they hired Brian to assemble a forensic team. Now, Brian did exactly what his older brother Edward would have done, is he also concealed everything too. And he didn't solve the case. He didn't solve the case, just like his older brother Edward didn't solve the murder of Christina Ferrari. Had he solved the murder, then his client would be exonerated and acquitted, right? So instead, he does the opposite and gets his client convicted. In this case, the Toronto police are not investigating the murder. So we go out and we hire these super expensive, gold-plated, retired forensic people, led by a fraudulent, unethical lawyer, Brian Greenspan. If you're listening, Brian, hey, come on the show and let me rip you another one while we talk, right? And you can have your juxtaposition cup. I'll give you a complimentary cup. Come on my show. Anyway, Brian put on a nice little phony baloney show. He criticized the Toronto Police Department, who deserves to be criticized. But he didn't do anything either. He criticized them, but he didn't solve the case. So he's a concealment artist. Anybody whose last name is Greenspan, if your name is Alan Greenspan, Edward Greenspan, or Brian Greenspan, it means you're incapable of telling the truth. It means you're a bully. It means you can badger and intimidate witnesses. That's what it means. And, Jewish lawyers have very bad reputations, okay? Don't make me say Alan Dershowitz. Don't make me say Donald Trump's lawyer, Roy Cohn. Don't make me say that. Those are all Jewish lawyers. Now, Non-Jewish lawyers, they have a despicable reputation too. All attorneys, barristers, solicitors are ambulance chasers. Melvin Bellive, F. Lee Bailey, Robert Shapiro, they're all despicable human beings. They're odious and they never solve anything. Anyway, this sculpture here, this junkyard sculpture, was made in the 1970s by a gentleman by the name of Leo Sewell, spelled Sewell, Sewell, Leo Sewell. He calls himself a junk sculpture artist. And according to his website, this Philadelphia man grew up near a dump, and he created his first art renderings from the discarded materials found in the dump. He chose his materials based upon their color, shape, texture, durability, and pantia. In other words, their rusticness and their ability to corrode over time. Sewell's art shapes do include human figures as well as animals. These two sculptures that were found in the Sherman home were originally displayed at the Eaton store at College and Yonge Streets in Toronto. That art store closed in 1977. When upon the Toronto Eaton Center opened, friends of the Shermans bought those sculptures from the Eaton Center and kept them in their Toronto home until they moved to the United States. Honey asked if she could have the sculptures. They happily donated them to Honey. Honey then displayed them in this downstairs entertainment room at 50 Old Colony Road mansion, 12,000 square feet. And I don't know where they are now. You do know that this home where the murders happened and where these sculptures were was demoed, and it was demoed with the furniture in the home and with family photographs on the wall. Do you know the family didn't clean out the home? They just demoed it with a bulldozer and a crane. Photos, art renderings. I mean, I do think they took a few items out of the home, but there was many personal furnishings in the home that were destroyed in the demolition of the home, which was done 2 years after the murders, less than 2 years after the murders. Remember, the murders were in 2017. The home was demoed in 2019, around May. And remember, the murders were in December. So you're talking about 18 months after the murders, the home was demoed. And that also raises questions. Why did the Sherman children authorize the destruction of what is a crime scene? Because it is very clear to me that the Toronto police did not investigate this murder, and neither did Brian Greenspan and his crack team. They didn't investigate this case either. They did do a second autopsy where they confirmed that it was ligature, strangulation that killed him. Hey, I already knew that. I don't really need to pay you a couple $1,000,000 to tell me what I already know. Anyway, that's the bottom line here, is we have a situation where it basically Wall Street and Swiss Bank Authority were able to rip off a generic pharmaceutical company from a man who ripped it off from his uncle, Louis Winter. So it's very hard to feel sorry for anyone in the story. It's criminals stealing from other criminals, basically. Anyway, that's part 2. I won't take any more of your time. Do like and share my videos. I'm heavily shadow banned. And let me just get my face back on here so you can see. And just know that don't believe anything you hear Brian Greenspan say. Don't believe anything that any lawyer in this case, or attorney or barrister, says. This is a big concealment case. They really do not want you to know who killed Honey and Barry Sherman. I assure you it was professionally done. It wasn't a real difficult job. It's not a very difficult job. The intelligence would have been known that the Shermans don't even set their burglar alarm, and they have no security cameras. So you're sort of inviting, grizzly bears into the home to feed. It's just not a difficult murder to commit. Not at all. All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye now.